Now that we've gone over the role of a group leader and what your role is at camp, we're going to go over Huddle Mechanics, which are things that help you do that role better and allow you to be more effective in your huddle times. And the first one, and one of the most important, is learn your kids' names quickly. It makes them feel important, makes them feel special, like you care about them, and it makes your time that week go so much more smoothly because you're able to call them by name. And it's just really important that you know their names. Because like I said, if you're cheering for them in competition, it doesn't mean very much if you say, hey, you, good job. If you're able to say, hey, John, man, great job. Hey, Mike, you did such a good job today. It really means something to them. So learn their names as quickly as you can. I know it's hard, but try the best. You do some name games, do something that allows you to learn their names quickly so you can begin to pour into them and call them by name. The next one is when you're having your huddle time, always sit in a place that's not distracting, a place that people aren't walking around. It can be under a tree, it can be in a building, just wherever it is, make sure that there's not a lot of stuff going on so you can really focus. That you don't have that many times with your kids, and each time is very important. It needs to be worthwhile. Needs to be something needs to be accomplished. So make sure you take the time to find a place that's quiet and away from other stuff. And also be sure to sit in some form of circle, oval, square, something that everybody feels included. Or not where it's, there's 8 guys here and one guy sitting by himself. Make sure it's some form where everybody can be a part of it. Open and close in prayer every time. Every huddle meeting, every competition, try to every meal. It just shows, not to show these kids, you must do this routine of praying every time you do something, but just showing the kids that without God, nothing's possible. You're acknowledging that God is the one that's in charge, that you've submitted your life to Him. You're just asking His blessing and that He would speak to you during your huddle times. It's just an example for them, for when they sit down and read the Bible, that they might think, oh yeah, we used to pray every time before our huddle meetings. I need to do that and ask God to speak to me during this time. And so take time to pray, and also, as the week goes on, maybe ask some other kids to pray. Like I said earlier, don't call them out. Don't make fun of them for not doing it. But just ask somebody if they'd like to pray. And if they say no, say okay. And you do it yourself. But just make sure to pray and that they see that example before and after each competition as well, to ask for safety, to ask that God will be glorified. And so just take the time to do that so they can see the importance of prayer. Always use open-ended questions if possible. You can ask specific questions about each person if you want, but when you're in your huddle time talking about spiritual things, talking about the Bible, talking about their life, ask open-ended questions because that produces conversation. It allows people to interact, and it's not just a yes or no answer, and you got to move on to the next question. So make sure to use open-ended questions like, what are you learning this week? What did you think about the speaker? What is your life like at home? What is your spiritual walk like? What is just things like that are open where they're free to answer and not trapped into a one-word answer. Don't make them feel like you're just talking directly to them. Don't use a you message. Don't say things like, well, you do this and you need to learn this. Use things like, I or we. We need to learn this. We need to look at this because they feel like they're getting preached at, and a lot of kids aren't going to respond to that. And so make sure you're inclusive in the words you use when you talk to them, and also you're talking to yourself as well. You're learning, you're growing, and you're speaking truth into your own life too. So make sure it's not just pointing the finger saying you need to do this. Use things like we, and so they feel more included. Make sure you don't have 1 or 2 kids that really dominate your huddle times. It's going to happen. There's always those couple kids that think they know everything. Even kids that are really solid spiritually, they like to talk a lot sometimes. But you can't let that happen. You can't let 2 kids, or 1 kid even, just dominate the entire huddle time. If that happens and you notice that, maybe take them aside and maybe let them lead a huddle later on in the week or something. But just make sure that they're not dominating each conversation because there's other people in the group that need to share things and talk, and they feel like, they may feel embarrassed or intimidated and not open up because these kids are taking over. And so just as you're not supposed to dominate the conversation, don't let any kids take charge and dominate it either. But don't let these kids go off on these rabbit trails during your huddle times. And make sure you don't do it either. And it happens in all age groups, middle school, high school, college, but especially in middle school. If you have a middle school huddle, be ready. They're going to ask some off-the-wall questions that have nothing to do with camp or the Bible or Christianity. They maybe ask about, basketball or, Twitter or whatever, Facebook or whatever. I mean, they just have the most random things. And so don't chase too many of those rabbit trails. If that happens, kind of reel them back in and say, hey guys, that's a great topic. We'd love to talk more about that. That's a great question. Maybe we can talk about that at lunch. Or maybe during free time, come find me and we'll talk about it. But don't chase those rabbit trails and get off topic and get distracted because God really wants to use you in that time. So don't let anything take away from that time and stay focused on what you're talking about. The Holy Spirit is the one in charge of salvation, not you. You don't have to have some magical words, just the magical sermon or teaching with these elaborate stories and all this stuff. God is the one in charge of saving us. We can't save ourselves. We can't save other people. That's why we needed Christ to die for us. And so just remember that your job is to be here. Your job is to be there at camp and work hard and do what you're called to do, follow the rules, and be a huddle leader. But God's job is to save them. Salvation is God's job and His work. So let Him do that. And just remember that He wants to work through you. He wants you to be a part of it. He wants you to be a part of the salvation of these kids, but we can't do it on our own. So remember that and just trust that God has prepared you with what to do, giving you the words, the things to say to these kids, and that He's going to save them. And it's an exciting thing that He wants to use you to make a difference. So let Him do that this week and don't get in the way of that. And just remember that He wants to save these kids through you this week. Keep your kids in the huddle the full amount of time. Most huddle times will be about an hour, maybe a little bit less, maybe a little bit more, depending on just how things went. But keep them in there the full time. You only have about 7 or 8 huddle meetings with your kids throughout the week. And if those times get cut short, that's even less time with them. And so make sure you have the full amount of time to talk to them. Even if you're done with your lesson or you're done with what you wanted to say, just sit and talk with them. Hang out. Play some games. Just do things as a group. Don't just say, all right, guys, huddle's over. I'll meet you here at this time. So just make sure you stay there the full time so you get the most out of each and every huddle time. Okay, guys, that was a rundown of your role as a group leader in Huddle Mechanics. We're trying to equip you to be the best huddle leaders you can be, and that's what those lists are for. And so do those things, and you'll put yourself in a good position to let God use you, and you'll be more prepared for what comes at you at camp this summer.